Good morning. Sealand Open is over, and I have the results, and I'm ready to show them to you all. Um, there will be a bunch of links in this description, both to our sponsors and also to the places where you can go and see the results and the lists and everything. So if you want to go on and watch all the details, links are in the description. Now, of course, I went into this thinking that this would be a tournament that had a certain meta, and looking over the lists, that was it was pretty clear that most people thought that the Soviets were going to win. Did it happen? Very interesting question. Overall, this was a very nice tournament. As a TO, I felt like this went about as well as it could. There were very minor things that I would want to try and improve, but the venue was great. It was a little bit annoying that we couldn't have vendors inside the venue. There were some municipality rules that you couldn't do that. If we were basically lending the venue for free, so we had to follow the rules, of course. But we had a bar. That wasn't a problem apparently with the municipality, but we did have a bar. So, and there was quite a lot of room. We were on 3 floors. We only used 2 of them because we were 26 people. We had room for I think about 50 if every corner was filled out. So it was really well run, if I say so myself. It's also, by the way, what most people who've given us feedback have said to us. So people were quite happy with what happened. So yeah, I've made a PowerPoint. You know, this happens every time. I'm still trying to work on a lot of different stuff. I'm trying to this meta-analysis that I'm doing is both to work on sort of figuring out how important are lists contra players in deciding what's most important in deciding what wins a match. So that's a thing. Very unscientific and stuff, but it's really caught my attention to try and figure out what's most important. And I think that's because sometimes non-competitive players accuse us complete whackers of just being list builders and not actual players. So that answering that accusation has sort of caught my attention. And then I'm also sort of interested in how does the meta, what do people think is good, how does that develop, and are they right? And we saw a lot of interesting stuff at the Sealand Open. So let's go and see. Here we go. The meta of Sealand Open 2023. Yes, this will be an annual event. We're back next year. The event itself was 1,000 points, 1 or 2 generic reinforced platoons. We had 26 players from 7 different nations. We had, and this is on the picture here, it's not everyone who's actually on the picture, but a lot of us are. There were a few guys, I think, who were in the bathroom or something. They weren't there. Maybe they'd gone away to smoke. That was one thing. If you were a smoker, you had to leave the actual premises of the school in order to smoke. There are very strict smoking rules in Denmark. They want people to quit. So we had 15.4 order dice on average, which was a little high, a little bit higher than I had expected. Although there were very few actual true horde lists, order dice spam lists. We had 2 order dice spam lists. The largest one being Geordie's French list of 23 order dice. We had 10 Soviet lists, 5 German, 5 American, 2 British, and a lot of ones after that. So Soviets were dominating the meta here. And there was a lot of the lists that were what I would call mixed bag lists. So for a while in Denmark, we've been seeing lists that sort of build one thing and do it really well. Like we had a whole period where flamers were a thing. We've had assault armies being a thing. We've had veterans being a thing. But right now, what seems to be a thing is that you bring a little bit of everything. So you have good units that have different capabilities, um, and and that's really good for the meta, I think, because that means that both competitive players and casual players or thematic players can build lists that are sort of they're more or less what you would see built. Um, so that's really cool. I really enjoyed seeing that in the Danish meta as well. I'm, by the way, also seeing this in the international meta. I think I should make a new video on that as well at some point. I'm seeing a build that I've started calling the greatest hits build, which is especially it's a Soviet build. Yeah, it brings two of everything. So that's the event. We had some very nice sponsors for it. I'm gonna have to do a shout out to them. Of course, Danny from Tabletopper. He had brought his shop in his van, and we had outside of the premises we had a car boot sale. I really enjoyed that. He had also brought you could pick up your orders for free. Um, so that was really good. And he also gave prizes for the winners. Not the winners actually. He had donated 2 large tanks, one for the wooden spoon and one for the army that was so Axis allies, right? So one for the worst Axis, one for the worst ally, basically. We also had the Emperor's Workshop from South Africa sponsors. They made some very nice dice trays for us, and we priced them out to everyone who wanted one. There were 13 dice trays that we priced out. The rest I have in my game room. I wanted one for myself at least, and they were taken really quickly. People wanted that memento because it had our logo and it had Emperor's Workshop logo on it. It was a really nice dice tray. So, and Warlord Games, of course, sent us one of their tournament packs, a silver one. So there was a lot of blisters to hand out to people, and we did what I think you always should do. You start at the bottom, so the bottom players, the people who have had the roughest weekends, they've had more losses than the tops, they got to pick first, and that was really nice. And I think everyone was sort of happy with going back with something. I also want to make a short shout out to Chandler Horton. Chandler is an American living in Germany right now, and he had brought with him because he had access to very cheap German beer, so he had brought 2 kegs and a box of beers, and that really helped our bar. I think people enjoy being able to go and have a beer after a game. So that was really good of you. Thank you, Chandler. Now, my predictions was that Pim, Michael Ophier, Michael C, Geordie, and Mark HC would be the top 5. That didn't pan out. And that I had predicted this. This was solely based on lists, by the way. I know that me knowing most of these players didn't really help my accuracy, but I was only 2 out of 5 accurate. So that's not great, just based on lists. These were the lists that I felt like were the strongest lists. They weren't. I was only accurate on 2 out of 5. If I go to out of 10, I was 4 out of 10 accurate. So that's a little better, but not much. Alistair Unicom of the Scottish WTC group, he had predicted that Michael Fee, Geordie, Danny, Lucas, and Jan would be the top 5. Didn't pan out either. He was 2 out of 5 accurate and 3 out of 10 accurate. So a few of these actually dropped down. Lucas and Jan did not finish up top 10. Russell Wright of the Welsh WTC team, he predicted that Lucas, Peter, Phil, Pim, and Christian would end up in the top 5. None of them did, and only one of them finished in the top 10, Christian. So yeah, that and John Ross of the American WTC team, he's the captain for America 1. He had predicted that Danny, Lucas, Geordie, Bjarke, and Michael Fie would end up in the top 5. Danny and Michael Fie did, and Geordie was in the top 10. No, Bjarke was in the top 10. Geordie finished. What did he finish? I have the notes right here. He finished 6th. So my bad. He had 4 out of 10 in his top 10. Right. What this shows basically is even very, very good, very, very experienced players have a hard time figuring out whether or not a list is good enough to finish in the top, or that good lists don't necessarily finish in the top 5, top 10. So you can't really predict very accurately whether or not, just based on someone's list, how they will do. And that is really encouraging for me as a competitive player. And I think it should be really encouraging to the casual players and thematic players as well, because it just shows that if you're a good player, then I don't think it's the list that will bring you into the top. Yes, you can have a bad list that actually handicaps you, but for winning events, for finishing top 5, top 10, it's not necessarily just based on your list. It's and predicting what lists are good is really, really difficult. Number 5 was Mark of the Danish WTC team, seen here playing against Danny on the right, Mark is on the left. He had brought his 17 order dice British, with Perigurkus, and what was cool about this list, because it's a very cheesy, very meta list, but what was cool is he could have brought 2 platoons and he didn't. So he only had 1 Darker Steward, he only had 1 of each of the things, so there was an element of mixed bag here instead of maxing out of all the goodness. And Mark has been playing this list for about a little under a year. He brought a very similar list to the WTC and did very well for himself. So he felt like he was strongest with just running a single platoon, even though we know from experience that dual platoons do better. And he came top 5 with a single platoon. I really like that. Congratulations, Mark. Number 4 was Sir Jonathan Martin of Fyn, Denmark. Jonathan has definitely proven that Germany are back on the list here. We saw the same thing happen at some of the major tournaments this past year. Germany is being made great again, gentlemen. He had brought a 17 order dice German list. He had double platoons, and he had pioneers who were fanatic, had loads of gear. He had 3 skirmish Waffen SS units with Panzerfaust, I believe. He had Spartruppens, he had LMG team, inexperienced medium mortar, Howling Cow, Stummel, which is a really cool little vehicle. He had an AT rifle, he had a 222, and a Panzer III and a Kugelwagen. Really cool list, very, very strong finishing here for Jonathan Martin, who was also on the Danish WTC team, even though he is British in his passport at least. He lives on Fyn in Denmark. So really cool. And he had a beautifully painted army. He won best painted as well. Congratulations, Jonathan. In 3rd place, we had Michael Fie of the Danish WTC team, seen here doing the correct dice draw method, bag above your head. And he had brought his Polish, who he has been playing Polish for years, and he has been playing Polish a lot this last year because he brought them to the WTC as well. A very similar list. He had dual platoon, 15 order dice with, of course, Lancers, regular Lancers, and TKS tankettes. He had a rough first day, or rough. I had pressured him a little bit by predicting that he would be in the top 5, and he had 2 draws, and that wasn't good. But the day 2, he was playing like goddamn champ. He was going strong on day 2. And then in the second place, we had Benny of the Danish WTC team. So you can basically see we had 4 WTC Danes in the top 5 here. So the good players finished top 5. And he had brought his Soviets, a very unusual list for Benny. Benny often plays hordes or order dice spam. And he had brought a 15 order dice Soviet list with 3 Death Star units, body armored engineers, tank riders, and a single Darker Steward. Or did he have 2? Can't remember now. I think he had a single one. Yeah, he had a single one. So again, a single platoon list doing top 5. I hadn't expected this, but it happened. It's really good showing from Benny. Benny plays an unusual list. He had built this list for this event only. So he even converted some of his SMG troops to have body armor on them. Really nice showing. And Benny is seen here playing Peter. Peter's on the right, Benny's on the left. Yeah, nice showing. Congratulations, Benny. And then number 1 was Danny. Danny, I think, is right. Yeah, he's playing Benny on the table right in the corner there, the white sandy table, my desert table. He had brought a 17 order dice American list. So Americans are back on top. Skirmishing is back in the game, boys. And this is a very, very good list. It's a sort of very similar to what I'm started referring to as the greatest hits from the Soviets. And Danny had sort of 2 of everything. So he had 2 sets of engineers with flamethrowers, some of them on foot with skirmish capabilities, lots of BARs, and some of them in transport, one in a Dodge, one in a Diesel. And then 2 Darker Stewards to support them, 2 inexperienced horses, 2 war dogs, and 2 multi-rocket launchers. So he could split up his army and have all capabilities in each section of the army. And he often did. He often split up his army in 2 groups and then hit from 2 flanks at the same time. And it was really cool, especially seeing him play his skirmisher units that would simply skirmish the enemy down. It's not usually done in Denmark. It hasn't been won by a skirmish army for quite a while, but this was done so, and it was really, really cool. Congratulations so much, Danny, on the win. I have a picture of him with his trophy in a minute, but this was really good, and it was really good seeing Americans win tournaments in Denmark as well. So, and it was, did you notice it was a good spread of top armies as well? Really lovely. So the key takeaways here, we have Danny with his trophy. Both we had trophies made especially for the event in glass, and his Warlord Games certificate for winning the event. The key takeaways for me was that in the top 10, not just the top 5, but in the top 10, we had a very, very good spread of armies. We had 2 German armies, we had 2 British armies, we had the French, we had the Polish, we had the Americans, and we had 3 Soviets. And the Soviets overall spread out so that you had Soviets in the top, in the middle, and in the bottom, and in equal amounts. So for me, that was really good. It means that the Soviets, just picking the right army is not how you win bold action. It's not what happens. The lists in the top 10, I had ranked them from 3 to 4, which also sort of shows that sometimes there's a little bit of statistics that can be done here, that you can sort of predict that you're more likely to end up top 10 if you have a competitive army to a strong competitive army. A 3 is a competitive army, a 4 is a strong competitive army. And then you're more likely to end up in top 10. But if we go down and look at the bottom 5, Then the bottom 5 had 2 Americans, 2 Soviets, and 1 Germany. And they were ranked to thematic, more with some elements of competition, 2.5, to a 3.5. So not that much lower in ranking, right? And most of them were 3s or 3.5s. So for me, that there's not a significant difference between what ends up in the top and what ends up in the bottom, based on lists. Although, of course, the 2.5s, they did handicap themselves a little bit, and suffered for it. Not much, but a little bit. I really like that Danny won with a mixed bag unit, and that Jonathan takes 4th, making Germany great again. And the spread of the armies, all of that, key takeaways, lovely. Right, that was the meta of the Sealand Open. I will see you all again next year. We're aiming to break at least 30 next year. So join up as soon as the event pops up, and I will try to make sure that it pops up in a week or two. Yeah. Thank you so much from the TO team. Thank you so much from me, to everyone who attended, to all the sponsors, and I will see you next time. Cheers.